Yo,
What's up?
how you doing?
Good. I'm trying to center myself so the helmet you can see behind me. That's fine.
What's going on? Okay, good. When's the presser for this thing?
For what, Adams?
Yeah.
That'll be some point this week.
Fucking, that's gonna be a love fest.
I bet Derek will be there.
I bet he will be. I bet he will be. That'll be a love fest. That's funny. That is funny. So, okay. All right. Got a couple more minutes.
I gotta fly back up to Sacramento tomorrow. Back to the Bay Area for the weekend.
Sac, baby. Sac town.
I'm only there for a day, and then I'm going into Fremont for the next 4 or 5. I'm just gonna work out of the Fremont Marriott.
You know, it was interesting. I was thinking about Seattle, and I think one of the reasons why I thought they really, kind of whiffed on the trading Wilson was the fact that like it's an area where people just are not gonna flock to go play unless they get drafted there. Like as far as a big time quarterback.
No, I mean they're gonna end up with Baker Mayfield probably.
Yeah, and
there's no other landing spots for him. And then you got him for 1 year for $18 million, and then you got to make a decision.
Well, that's crazy. I mean, it's just I don't know. We'll see. That's the one thing. He was already up there and he's under contract. So I mean, I don't know. I know. It's interesting how nobody wants to put up a fight. If somebody says they're disgruntled, they just get traded.
Yeah, they don't play hardball anymore like they used to.
They used to. Like I remember back in the day, Parcells talking about when she's ready, we'll play him. We'll talk about Terry Glenn.
Terry Glenn. The Cowboys made Emmitt Smith sit out 2 weeks, and they're just like, whatever.
Yeah, we okay. Yeah, nobody plays hardball anymore.
Well, then they paid him because they were 0-2, but
I mean, and you can't hold like remember when you can hold out.
You can't even do that anymore. You can't
do it anymore. You get fined, like, and they can't even like say, "Oh, you came in, so now we'll relieve you of it." They can't do that. So
they can't do that. Quarterbacks don't hold out. I would have called their bluff.
I don't know.
Unless you're Baker Mayfield, and they're like, "Yeah, we just don't want you anymore." Now imagine you're a Browns fan and you passed up Josh Allen so you could take Baker Mayfield.
Oh. That's crazy. I'm going to start now. I'm only doing this because we've never done it. So,
okay.
The live thing, I'm just hoping that the internet holds because I got teenagers on the internet as well. I'm not plugged in. Like if I was plugged into the internet, I'd be more. I'm on Wi-Fi, so we'll see. That's it. So people are like, "Oh, you should go live. You should go live." Well, we'll go live. We'll go live a couple of times and see what happens. All right. And where's my intro at? All right. Never here and on to never. Okay. All right, and record. And 1, 2, 3. And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I am your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes. And as always, we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. We are on YouTube Live. Just kind of mess around with it, play around with it, if you will. I love to edit these things, so I will I'll be at the mercy of what happens, like live TV, broadcast news style, Tom Brokaw style here on Raiders podcast, if you will. RTPW podcast is my Twitter handle, and then our at RHOLM22 is Ryan's. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing good, and we don't have a 7-second delay like live TV either.
We do not. Yeah, you say F-bomb, you say F-bomb. I said F-bomb last week because of what happened. What this organization finally did. It's kind of crazy. Subscribe, like, dislike, all that stuff. We take all of it. 5-star reviews. If you're listening to it, refer it to a friend. Again, the number went down a little bit, but 66% of you who watch the show and you've watched it every week have not subscribed. Subscribe, man. Subscribe. That's a huge number. We want to get that down to 33%. Let's get that down. So people are listening to us in Tijuana, Toronto, Canada, Barrington, Rhode Island, Chula Vista, California, Paris, Texas, and Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Forget those Flames. Let's put on Raiders podcast time. So let's just start here, and before we go crazy and go jump into Devonte, which is going to be a whole different thing, let's just start off with a couple of takes we had last year in the draft. One where we disagreed and one where we 100% agreed on. And the thing with the Falcons, right? They're sitting at 4 last year, and you and I both say the same thing. Matt Ryan's on the end of on the end of the rope. Why not just draft your future quarterback and then just take it from there? Instead, they don't. They swing and miss. They took a big swing and miss at Deshaun Watson. They don't get Deshaun Watson, and now Matt Ryan, of course, doesn't want to be like second fiddle and says, "Oh, so you want to go with Deshaun Watson? Now trade me somewhere else because I don't want to sit here in this no Calvin Ridley, no Russell Gage." No direction offense that you got going on here in Atlanta, and he ends up being a Indianapolis Colt because every quarterback comes to the AFC.
Yeah, the weird thing, and we talked about this, they should have reset the organization last year. You had a brand new head coach, Arthur Smith. You had Fontenot come over to be the GM from the Saints. You wanted everyone to be on the same page. Marry them all together. Bring in the quarterback with the coach, with the GM, and let them build. And now they've set their own rebuild back at least 2 years because now they don't have a quarterback.
Yep.
They picked in the top 5. We talked about this, and we talked about positional value. They took a tight end, and I love Kyle Pitts, but they took a tight end at 4. He better be a Hall of Fame tight end, but now he doesn't have a quarterback to throw him the ball. Now, they went out and got Marcus Mariota, reunited him with Arthur Smith, which is great because he knows the offense. But last time I checked, Derrick Henry's not running the football in Atlanta. It is Cordarrelle Patterson, who's turned out to be a pretty good player for them. But who are they going to take? Like, there is no quarterback out there for them this year unless they reach. Last year they were picking at 4. Mac Jones was there. Justin Fields, who we both loved, was there. They could have taken either one of those guys and just reset it and started over. And now you're taking a $40 million cap hit to move on from Matt Ryan. And there's no pieces there. Their wide receiver core, you sent me a picture of their wide receivers. I don't know. They have Kyle Pitts. That's all I know.
That's all I know.
There's a flex tight end. They're a long ways away from competing, and they're in a division where had they done it last year and taken a quarterback, they're right behind Tampa. And Tampa's about to lose Brady. He might have 1 year left in him. And New Orleans is rebuilding. They don't have a quarterback. They re-signed Jameis Winston. And over in Carolina, they can't figure out what they're doing in Carolina. They've tried everything, and they still are back at square one in terms of quarterbacks.
Isn't it crazy in Carolina, though? Because if Carolina just hired the right coach, and maybe even if New Orleans, if they hired a big-time head coach, like they might have been able to talk Deshaun Watson into coming there. So we'll see what happens there as well. And listen, you got to have a good quarterback to back him up because he's probably going to get suspended. The NFL doesn't care about anything else. It doesn't care about anything else. Like they drag him through the shield. They dragged the name of the shield through the dirt and then during this time period. So he'll get punished for it. So we'll see what happens there. The Niners can't find a spot for Jimmy G now. Like Jimmy G this is the reason why, like, and I understand how much Trey Lance didn't play in college. So I get it. I get your point about like you don't want to throw him to the Wolves. Me personally, I would just throw him to the Wolves last year because to me that offense is run heavy anyway. Play action, get some deep shots with him. Get the experience he could have gotten last year would have been incredible for his development. Now they're still playing that what if game. And I think they're going to end up now with his sore shoulder injury. I think the Niners are going to end up with Jimmy G back at quarterback next year. I mean, it's like a strong possibility.
Yeah, I don't see a landing spot for him. I think he ends up back in San Francisco. Unless there's an injury over the summer and a team needs a quarterback, there's really not a landing spot. The only team that's left that really needs to do something is probably Seattle. And I don't see Garoppolo as a fit there. I think Mayfield probably ends up there. And then when everything settles with the musical chairs at quarterback, the 49ers are going to be left with Garoppolo and that contract.
Yep.
And then what do you do in training camp? If Trey Lance isn't good in training camp, they almost have to play him. You can't run Jimmy G back out there and waste year 2 on the rookie deal. I get last year they went to the NFC Championship. I'm not going to bash them for that. Yeah. I would have played Garoppolo too because Lance just wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. But he's got to be ready in year 2. He's got a full off season.
Got to play.
He's got to play this year no matter what. And then you're stuck with Jimmy G. Now you're probably trading him for pennies on the dollar. If someone gets hurt and throws you a 4th round pick over the summer, you may be able to move him. But there's really nowhere to send him.
Yeah, that's kind of it's all that stuff dried up now, right? Especially with I mean, they're riding
Carolina.
They're riding with Mitch. They're riding with Mitch right there. Right. And now for Carolina, Carolina just say, hey, why don't you just cut him? Like, if I'm Carolina, I'm like, just cut him. We're not gonna give me assets for that. So the Raiders were very busy today. They signed Jermaine Illuminor, Jacob Hollister, Kyler Fackill. Let's see here, Micah Kaiser, and the whipping boy for all Raider Nation, Brandon Parker. So quickly, we'll go through these before we continue to tease before we talk about the impact of Devonte Adams. But Illuminor and Parker, depth on the offensive line. Illuminor might he started for the Patriots at some point. I mean, a couple years ago. So there is some familiarity between him and the head coach. What are your thoughts about those two guys? And obviously, I think, if he is your third tight end, your third tackle, I can live with Parker, but they do have to find somebody who is going to be a legitimate right tackle for this football team.
Yeah, I don't think right tackle's settled. I don't think Illuminor is the answer. He's a depth piece. He has a chance to make this roster as a versatile guy that can play both guard spots, kick out the right tackle in emergency. Parker, to me, is a swing tackle. I still don't want him playing right tackle. So, if he's the backup left tackle, he's shown a little bit more promise there. Clearly, these guys are, in my guess, are coming in on 1 year near league minimum with very little guarantee. They're bringing them to camp. I don't know if that, just because they're re-signed to me, they're not locks to make this roster. If there's an upgrade available as we get into free agency, as we get into June, when the Raiders are going to come up with about $20 million in cap room, maybe they go out and get the veteran. But for now, bring them back, see if the new coaching staff likes them. But I would be very surprised if there's any guaranteed money really tied up in any of those players. And to me, I actually broke down. The Raiders have added 17 players since free agency started, which is a third of what their roster is going to be next year. And surprisingly, 10 of them are on offense. So clearly, Josh McDaniels did not like the pieces that were in Oakland around Carr, and they've added 10 players to this offense. Now, not all of them are going to make the roster. I think some of these guys they've signed probably won't make the roster. Mm-hmm. But it is surprising they haven't tried to upgrade the offensive line at this point based on everything they brought in. And they really haven't attacked, other than Bilal Nichols, the defensive line, where they're going to need 2 or 3 big bodies, 320-pound guys. So we'll see what they do. And they haven't really addressed a corner position. They've got some guys that have a chance to be, okay starters, but there's no stars on the defense and the defensive backfield at this point. So if there's a corner available, maybe Bradbury or Gilmore's available, June 1, maybe they add them when they get the more cap room. Maybe they have a deal with one of these guys. We just don't know it. They're waiting for a car extension for more money to open up. But I still wouldn't be surprised if they went out and added another corner, a safety, another tackle. I don't think they're anywhere near done. They're going to turn over half this roster.
And you know what? The way these guys work, I honestly feel as I think Chevy Silva Raider says that the Panthers need a quarterback too. True. They need a whole lot there. And I think they need a new head coach too. But thank you for watching on the live stream. Um, you know, I think they're going to be up to like the kickoff week before they finish turning over this roster. They're going to be, I mean, they're going to work tirelessly to try to get that done. So hopefully they are able to get that done. But there are some interesting pieces here. What about the linebackers here? Fackel and Micah Kaiser. Kaiser looks like Fackel has some ability to get to the quarterback in this defense, which is, if you watch the Giants play last year, when he moves pieces around, the linebackers can a lot of times free up and get to the quarterback and get some sacks.
Yeah, you just got to look at the ties here. Connect the dots. Micah Kaiser played in Denver last year under a Fangio disciple defense, so he's familiar with the defense the Raiders are going to run. But he also played for special teams coach Tom McMahon, who's now with the Raiders. So there's two ties there. He's a third inside linebacker, depth piece that can play special teams. If he has to start a game or two, it's okay. If you need him to play the whole season, that's another issue. But it's a nice piece as a third or fourth linebacker on the inside. I like Fackrell. Now, he's played – his position coach in Green Bay was Patrick Graham when he had 10.5 sacks in 2018. He can bring pressure off the edge. This guy played in the same defense under Brandon Staley over in with the Chargers last year. So these guys are used to playing these man match, two high shell coverages that the Fangios, Grahams, Staleys are running. So these guys are familiar with the defense. They each bring a little bit of value. I'm assuming neither one of them is a big contract. Fackrell has a chance to be the third rusher. He can beat out Malcolm Kuntz. I know Raider fans don't want to hear that. But he can be a presence. He can get you 4 or 5 sacks if he gets enough snaps. Let's just hope that, that Crosby's on the field a lot and so is Jones, and those guys rack up the sacks. If Fackrell has to play a ton of snaps, it's clearly a fall off from those two guys. But he can still be a guy that if you need him for 3 or 4 weeks to play a lot of snaps, he'll be fine. Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to see what happens there as far as that goes. Hollister, you had a tweet out earlier today. Who loves tight ends more than Gruden? And obviously it's it's Josh McDaniels. Yeah. And let's be honest, I mean, it is in this passing league. I mean, they're the closest guys to the quarterback. They can they can hopefully get to a mismatch pretty quickly. And also it keeps you in a situation, Ryan, where people don't know whether it's run or pass. So if they can just hold their blocks for a little bit, you can get a quick run with a Drake or a Jacobs, and then also you can also have have a little get those guys like Hollister and Waller and Monroe and people like that, just guys who can get into the rhythm of the passing game as well.
Yeah, the Raiders now have 4 tight ends under contract. They count Nick Bowers as well, who's the bigger blocking version. We'll find out if they like Bowers, because I wouldn't be surprised if they added another tight end, because Hollister fits more into the receiving guy that's going to get vertical down the seam. When he came over from Seattle to New England, he knows the offense. I don't think he's the true inline blocking guy that's going to allow them to move Waller around. So if they want to go 2 tight end personnel, it's either going to be Moreau, or they need to get a bigger guy that's going to hold up in the run game if they do want to go to 12 personnel to run the ball. Moreau was just okay last year run blocking. Hollister is not a run blocker. He's in there to catch passes. Pretty good down at the goal line because he can move a little bit and you can move him around. You can line him up in the backfield. He can line up is a wing tight end, and he can get out in the flat, and he can run some of those routes. But they don't have a big blocking tight end unless they like Nick Bowers, but we don't know if they do or not. So I don't think they're done at tight end.
No, they're probably not done in a lot of places. So, doing this show for a while now with Ryan, we have a text thread that goes back and forth. So the minute I saw, and I was walking through the hallway and I saw Adams to Raiders, I was like, let me just double check this to make sure it's not Jamal Adams. But when I found out it was Devonte, I thought that's nuts, man. I thought it was nuts. I thought it was crazy. I had to make sure it was the real Adam Schefter. It wasn't like, something else, or rap shorts instead of rap sheet, something like that. So the Raiders, I mean, these two guys, after a very quiet, couple of weeks or a couple of days, they said, hey, we're going to screw it. We're going to go for it. It's funny because there was a show that we produced last week that will never air because we were all talking about how the Raiders didn't do anything in free agency. And now they are a team that's really going for it. Back-to-back days, we had an emergency show with Chandler Jones, and the day after the Raiders end up with Devonte Adams, and now with Waller, Renfro, and Adams. You know, if you solidify that offensive line, and you have Jacobs and Drake as well, I mean, this is a very formidable offense. It should be one of the top 10 offenses in all of football, Ryan.
Yeah, I believe that the text I sent you after the Jones trade, I was driving on the highway. I think I texted you. I said, burn the tape. Like, don't air it. So that will stay in the vault. So you guys won't hear that show. But no, they went out and they got the number one wide receiver that all the Raider fans have wanted, who they've tried to get, whether it was Randy Moss or Antonio Brown or Martavius Bryant, who Gruden went after, or Henry Ruggs. They clearly have that guy now. Devonte Adams is still probably the top 2 wide receiver in the league, depending on how you want to line it up. It's really hard to say that he's not one of the best 2, if not the best. He dominates the red zone. He gets separation. Him and Carr already have a connection. The contract numbers that came out were mind-boggling. It was basically the Khalil Mack contract, but when we finally got the numbers, it's really a 3-year deal. It's $67 million, so he's a little over $22 million a year, which isn't outrageous for a player of his skill set when you consider that Christian Kirk got $21 million. But no, it's a great addition. It really opens up this offense because he has to get doubled. So now you can't double-team Waller. You can't double-team Renfro on those choice routes. You can't bracket him like teams are doing. Those guys are going to get single coverage. And then whoever lines up opposite him at the other side now, he's probably going to play the X in this offense. So who's going to be the Z? It's probably not going to be Bryan Edwards. So maybe there's still another addition to be made there. It's probably not Matt Collins. He's more of a special teams guy, bench receiver to come in. I kind of, sitting around today, I'm like, you know what? Maybe Deshaun Jackson on a 1-year deal to put him back in this offense to give him some speed and let him try to do that. Could work. They could still use that Z receiver that can move around, that has speed to come into this offense. Now, whether they draft that with 3rd, 4th, 5th round, or whether they attack it in free agency, they may add another piece. But they are going to run the football. Clearly, they have a stable of backs now. They've gone out and added to the backfield. Clearly, they added a new fullback, a couple of running backs to go with the likes of Drake and Jacobs, and they can run out all kinds of personnel packages. You thought Gruden had crazy personnel packages? The Raiders are going to be able to run out whatever they want. It's going to be, who knows? It might be 12 personnel with totally different tight ends and running backs. It just depends on who they want to pair up based on the matchup. And this is what Josh McDaniels does. He takes advantage of the matchups. They're going to be able to move Adams around. Like, he can play the slot, he can play X, he can play Z. Whatever matchups they're getting in coverages, they can get him open. But now they can go into games if they want to run the ball and they want to use Brandon Bolden, the bigger back, and Jacobs, they can do that. If they want to spread you out and go 11 personnel and use Drake out of the backfield as receiver, they can do that. They can use Amir Abdullah if he makes the club. So this is what they did in New England. The game plan is going to change every week. So all you fantasy people out there, they're going to load up on Waller and Jacobs and Renfro. Understand that there's going to be weeks where they're just not going to get the ball because they're going to go to someone else. And as long as the Raiders win, it doesn't matter. But they have the pieces now with Devonte Adams. He finishes his offense. Now the offensive line has to hold up. I'm not sure they're done there. I hope they're not done there because it's the same line they had last year. They really haven't added anything to this line, which is hopefully where they're headed next. And I hope they don't think they can get a starter in the 3rd round of the draft. And I hope they don't rely on Illuminor and Parker as the answer at right tackle. So we'll see. But I really, the Adams, to me, like, it's a 1st and 2nd round pick the Raiders are stealing. Like, that's a layup. I mean, the Seahawks traded 2 number 1s for Jamal Adams. And he's a box safety. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start with, like, this is what I'm going to go back to Oakland, and I don't want nobody, don't get mad at me for Oakland Raider fans, because but this is what this is what they missed with the stadium by not getting a stadium in Oakland. Because when you don't get a stadium, if they had a brand new stadium in Oakland, you can make events, you can make concerts, you can make all these things like that. And I clearly, like, him having this stadium and the stadium being used for championship games and all these other, and bowl games and all these other things. And Taylor Swift and Garth Brooks and whoever else goes there. I mean, all that cash flow this is the guaranteed money. So, the aces, all that stuff like that. I mean, like this is what this does as far as the ownership. The owner, I got to give Mark David. You got to think about it. Like, he actually moved quickly and moved smartly, very efficiently after Gruden's mess. He let Gruden go. For the time being, he hired the coach who probably was the best option for him as the head coach, right? And then and then they made the playoffs. And then in the offseason, they end up doing the right things in the offseason too. So far with the Raiders. So I gotta give him a lot of credit for that. And he's been fantastic as far as that goes. Like, he's been fantastic as far as that goes. So now you're looking at the GM and the head coach. I heard, I guess it was a story that like they both sat down and watched tape of Devonte Adams together or separately, and then came together and just said, hey, this guy would be the first, would be a really good pickup for him. I could have just shown him a highlight tape for that, but if they want to operate that way, that's a good way for them to operate, right? And they work in concert, and like just being able to get that deal done is a great deal for the organization. This is not Randy Moss. This is not the White Tiger. This is not Antonio Brown. He's a human being who has a proper head on his shoulders, and he's an explosive player on top of that. And not to mention, now it's getting downplayed by some people now, but like, their relationship and the way they play together at Fresno. I mean, the way they play together at Fresno was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I'm going to call BS on that report that they had to sit down and watch tape in opposite rooms and study Devonte Adams. But they know who Devonte. That's like me believing the story that came out today that Urban Meyer didn't know who Aaron Donald was. That's BS. He knows who Aaron Donald was. He's working for networks doing football games.
Stop.
Yeah. My question to Raider fans is this, and I was leading the Mayock and Bisaccia had to go regardless of playoffs. Do you think that Chandler Jones and Devonte Adams are Raiders if Rich Bisaccia and Mike Mayock are still in the building? My answer is no chance. So that was why I wanted him out of there. I don't think that Mike Mayock is giving up draft picks to go get Adams. I think he's continuing the rebuild through the draft that he wanted to do. I don't see him giving up draft picks. I don't see those two players coming aboard if it's Rich Bisaccia on a one-year deal. So the Raiders as an organization, give them credit. They made the right decisions. They went out and they got a GM who is aggressive, and he's going and getting difference makers. He's not going to sit back and let this division get away from him, because he knows there's a window with Derek Carr now. You have about a 5-year window. I expect Devonte Adams to continue this production for at least 3 years, and we'll see what year 4 and 5 of that contract looks like. But the Raiders can get out of it at that point if he's not productive. But to me, if you get 3 years from Devonte Adams and he gives you on average 1,500 yards and 10 to 12 touchdowns for 3 years, it's absolutely worth a first and a second round pick. But the key now is the expectations have been risen in Las Vegas. Yep. It's not playoffs or bust. You need to get to an AFC championship game in the next 2 years, and you need to get to a Super Bowl in one of those 3 years to make this trade worth it. So the Raider fans who wanted to call out the Bears for giving up all those picks for Mac, this is the same thing coming back the other way. They have to get to the Super Bowl in the next 3 years to make this trade a win.
Yeah, and I would say this too. If you have a quarterback like Derek Carr, and in your mind you're saying, okay, Derek is the 4th best quarterback in this division, then if you're not punting the season, damn, you have to do this deal. Like, you have to do this deal, because not only are you getting him the number one receiver in football, but you're giving him a guy who he has clamored for forever, a guy who can do so many different things for your offense. And it's going to make Waller better. It's going to make Renfro better. If they get another receiver, they'll make that receiver better. Like the offensive capabilities of the offensive output of this team can jump dramatically, and it should help. Dare I say, the running game? Like, the running game can be more consistent. The running game can be an integral part of this team. Josh Jacobs can hopefully get things going consistently. and Drake can play a little bit of a role here with this team. And they brought in other backs, but they're not gonna. I mean, they're pushing the envelope at every position. So it's good to see. It's good to see the aggressiveness that they've had, and it's kind of crazy that the draft is going to be in Vegas, and you gotta wait till Saturday, Sunday to see the Raiders pick anybody.
Yeah, I won't be attending the draft now. My plans changed about a week ago.
Yeah.
But to me, this sets the Raiders roster up. They have the true difference makers. They're not chasing that number one wide receiver. They're not chasing those defensive ends. And I was told a couple of years ago, pass rushers are hard to find. Well, the Raiders found two of them. And credit Gruden and Mayock for finding Crosby. But now they just need to supplement the roster around them. They need to find solid players that fit within the scheme. It's much easier to do that than chase the difference maker. In baseball terms, to chase the 60, the all-star player. Once those guys are in place, it's much easier to find the 45s and 50s that are going to fill out your roster. So I like what the Raiders have done, but I think, like we talked about, I don't think they're done. I think they're still going to address the offensive and defensive line, and I'd still love to see a safety added at this roster. I have some players written down if we want to get into that, kind of who I'd like them to go after here in the next couple of weeks, depending on price. And we're in the point of free agency now where guys are going to sign 1-year deals. Yes. You're not going to see a lot of 3 and 4 year deals. So now
maybe Wagner though.
Wagner maybe
Wagner. Yeah,
you're not going to see the 3 and 4 or 5 year deals where you can spread out the signing bonus. Now cap space is even more valuable because if it's a 1 year $4 million deal, you got to have $4 million right now. There's no way to spread that out. So maybe incentive laden contracts, but I've got some names written down and I tweeted out. Obviously I'm a big Jonathan Hagins guy. I would love for the Raiders to bring him back. He's a 340-pound guy that can play defensive tackle. He can play the nose in a 3-man front if the Raiders use that, or if they go to a 4-man front, that he can also play, one technique, get into to the side of the center there. But I still think they need big bodies. What does Gerald McCoy look like a year? I know you can't count on him, but if you get him back for 1 year at a minimum deal, why not take a shot and see what you got? Danny Shelton's still out there, another big body guy that was with the Giants. Calais Campbell is still out there. Can you imagine? I know he's 35, but, running Calais Campbell out there. Akeem Hicks. Champ Kelly was in Chicago. Start connecting dots, like who's coached who was where. Like, I would love to get Akeem Hicks on this team for a year and throw him inside. If they go over to the offensive side, the offensive line, Darrell Williams is still out there from Buffalo. Now, I know he kicked inside to guard last year when they played Spencer Brown, but you can move him back to right tackle. Riley Reif is out there. If the Raiders truly think that they have the right tackle in the building, Eric Flowers, if you want to upgrade at one of the guard spots, is out there. So there's some players out there. Some of those guys are going to cost a lot of money. And clearly the prize of free agency out there now is still Tyrann Mathieu. And if the Raiders can figure out how to bring the Honey Badger over to play safety and line up next to Trayvon Moore, you can move both of those guys. You never know which one of them is going to play deep, who's going to go into the slot, but they both can do that. They both can go down in the slot and cover receivers. They both can blitz. They both can play deep. If you have both those guys running around, you have two basically center fielders back there with the two high shells. So I would do everything I could to try to get him in the building. And clearly free agency, the money's not out there that he wants, or he would have signed already. I'm sure teams are interested. Like, it's not like no one's picking up the phone and calling him. So we'll see. And then, some under the radar free agents I kind of like, and, Eddie Goldman is still out there. Brandon Williams, a big 340-pound defensive tackle, still out there. Jamie Collins. If the Raiders want to upgrade at the inside linebacker spot, he's in New England. He knows the staff. And then, another safety, Ronnie Harrison. He's 24 years old. He was good 2 years ago in Cleveland. So there's still some guys out there that can come in and really help out this roster.
Let's see here. Pep LeBiden wants to know what's the chances we trade Waller for picks. I say I can answer that. I think we both can answer that. I would say minimal. I think that, he's under contract. I know everybody is like terrified because he signed with Clutch. So he just signed with LeBron agency. But to me, I just feel like, he's going to go forward this year, I believe, with those three weapons and then try to fit pieces around them. What do you think?
I think there's a 0.1% chance they trade Waller. I'm not going to say never, but I'm going to say no, because in my head, if I'm when we talk about the personnel packages, now I'm Josh McDaniels. I'm in the lab. I'm coming out in 13 personnel. I'm going 3 tight ends with Devonte Adams split out wide. But now instead of going heavy, I'm going to split Waller out. So I'm going to put Adams on one side and Waller on the other side. And I'm going to have Moreau and Hollister in line.
Yeah.
Who are you going to guard? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like, you can't double both of them. So you're going to get one-on-one coverage on the outside with both of those guys. Or better yet, you just have him play inline and have him run down the middle of the field. Like, how are you going to cover him? There's not a linebacker or safety that's going to cover him one-on-one. So now you're doubling Waller in the middle of the field. You can't double Adams on the outside. So, no, I think there's very little chance that they trade him. I think that they understand when they gave up the picks this year that they're not going to pick until the third round. I don't think there's any other way that they're going to acquire picks. Unless maybe they can move Abram if someone wants Abram, if someone wants Farrell, but you're not getting a first or second round pick for either one of those guys.
No, you're not. And then no way. 858-299-5592 is a text line for questions. Also in the chat, if you have questions, I see the chat is going through some a lot of people going through the chat, doing some stuff there. So we definitely appreciate that. Let's see. James from the 718 wants to know what is an acceptable ranking for this offense next year. To me, I go more by points per game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't. They do yards. I'm good with all that yard stuff. I think they should. A couple of years ago, then they average almost 30 points a game. That should be about right. This team is really like you're picking your poison. Like, if you're coming up and you're saying you're going to load up on Devonte, then okay, fine. We're going to run the football, and then we're also we can run the football with Jacobs. Jacobs caught a lot of balls last year. I like the fact that in public, Josh McDaniels said when they asked about Josh Jacobs, he said, "Hey, I like you as a running back, but you kind of hold that ball like a loaf of bread." Like he said it to the media. So you know what he said to him. Like, basically, what deflate gate or not, Patriot running backs usually don't fumble. So he's trying to make sure he doesn't fumble. I think also the fumbling has to stop from the quarterback. The quarterback has been known to be a big fumbler, so you got to stop that as well. So, but I think they should be averaging close to 30 points a game. I just want to see when they play a team that they're favored against. Last year it was the Giants. Last year it was the Washington football team. Who was the third game that we hit that was a bad loss for them?
That's for the Bears.
The Bears, yeah. So those are the games you want to see them smash people. Like when the Pats played Jacksonville the week before, in week 17 last year, what was it, like 70-0? Yeah, like they play a bad team, you smash those bad teams, so you don't got to play around and deal with that as far as that goes. What do you think about the offense, and what's acceptable for you, expectation wise?
League average last year was around 22 and a half points. Clearly, it's good. The expectations are raised well above that. I'm going to say 28. If they can get to 28 points a game, add 6 points, those field goals need to turn into touchdowns. Daniel Carlson cannot attempt 40-plus field goals this year. And that's where you have Adams that can win in the red zone. And to me, I'm not going to go 30 because I think they're going to run the ball pretty well. Josh McDaniels might slow the game down. They're not going to go 5 wide and throw the ball 60 times a game. This isn't Madden. So there's going to be games where they're going to slow play it. They're going to run the ball, play action, throw screens. Fans are going to get pissed off because they're not throwing the ball down the field to some of these weapons. But it's going to be week to week. There's going to be weeks where they're explosive. There's going to be weeks where they grind it out. And that's just how this offense is going to be. So I'm going to go just south of 30. I'm going to say 28.
Yeah. Tim from 858 wants to know the best tackle options. I think you went over some of those already as well for the Raiders.
It's barren out there right now. It's Darrell Williams and Riley Reif.
Is Armstead already? Is he signed?
He's in Miami talking to the Dolphins, but that contract is going to be enormous. There's no way the Raiders can afford to bring him in. And he's a left tackle, not a right tackle. I think at this point, the Raiders probably hold out till after the draft. Maybe there's someone in the draft they like, but they're going to have a lot more money in June, and teams may release some veterans. Nate Solder's out there. I'm looking at the list right now. Nate Solder, Dwayne Brown, Eric Fisher, Darrell Williams, Riley Reif.
Don't say it. Don't say the other guy who we don't want back.
That's about it.
Is he a free agent now? He's a free agent, right?
Trent Brown.
Trent Brown.
He signed with the Patriots today, 2-year deal.
Okay, good. Perfect.
He's back in New England. But that's the list. Like, if you want a starting right tackle or just a tackle, then we get into the Bobby Harts of the world, Dennis Kelly, swing tackle, Ty Nsekhe, older guy, Bobby Massey, no. Maybe Marcus Cannon, who was in New England, but, is he really an upgrade over Illuminor? Or maybe they want to give Leatherwood a chance. But I think if they can't get Darrell Williams, Riley Reef, maybe, Nate Solder was terrible last year, so I won't even say that. Like, if they can't get one of those two guys, just wait till June, see what's on the market, because someone's going to come available.
Yeah. Where does Alex Barnes fit?
He's a backup. He's played everywhere. Like, he's played guard, left guard, right guard. He's played a little bit of tackle. He's kind of that dual everything. I think he's played even a little center. So he's probably, if you're going to have 9 linemen on the team, he's the 8th or 9th guy, just because he can do a little bit of everything. I don't think he factors in as a starter on this offense.
Yeah, looking at the list now of players that the Raiders have had. Bilal Nichols is a guy who we think could be probably a starter here. Everett and Rock Yassin. What thoughts about those guys? I mean, played on some interesting defenses, Baltimore and the Colts, respectively. What are your thoughts about those two guys? Any questions about them?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is the Raiders going to play a lot of man-to-man coverage with those two guys. Rock Yassin played some zone, obviously, with Indianapolis, but he's better in man-to-man coverage. And Everett comes over from Baltimore, where that's basically all they do, man-to-man coverage and bring the house. So Rock Yassin, to me, is penciled in as the starter opposite Trayvon Mullen. At this point, they gave up Yannick Ngakoue for him, so they have to envision him starting. He's in a contract year, so you want to figure out what you got. And he'll be fine. He'll be a solid guy over there. He's probably similar to Mullen, where he can be a solid number 2. I don't think either one of these guys is a lockdown number 1. Everett, to me, fits in that rotation as a backup on the outside, your 3rd or 4th corner, depending what goes on. And clearly Nate Hobbs is going to be in the slot still. But Everett gives you ability. If one of those two guys goes down, you have a guy that can come in. And Darius Phillips, where does Darius Phillips fit in? He's probably a backup slot, but he can also slide outside. So versatile guys that can play all over. And Hobbs, to me, could play outside too if they needed him to. He's going to be the question mark for me. He's got a bullseye because they played a ton of cover 3 last year. And this year, it looks like he's going to be asked to play a lot more man coverage. And I don't know if Nate Hobbs can play a ton of man coverage. We just didn't see it last year. So
curl flat.
Yeah. He's going to have a target on his back from other teams early in the season would be my guess.
Yeah. If he can't cover, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a real issue for him as far as that goes. The Put on Raiders podcast here. This channel is Put on Raiders, also USC football. So Fight On as well. So I have not been as active there because I did not expect. I had a couple shows lined up, and all of a sudden Devonte Adams fell into the Raiders' lap. So you got to understand that part of it. We got plenty of time to talk USC. Let's see here. Anybody? I mean, so as far as Matt Collins, as far as he goes, this is just a extra wide receiver. We all remember him. He was the guy who caught the pass down the field when, we had Arden Key had the crazy face mask on our good friend Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah,
Matt Collins to me reminds me a lot of Andre Holmes. If Raider fans remember Andre Holmes, bigger guy on the outside, 6'4", runs okay, but he's a special teams guy. He's going to come in and really help out the special teams aspect, and then he can go out and play out wide. He's an outside receiver only. If you need a guy to run some vertical routes, he can help you there. But just picture Andre Holmes when his days with the Raiders when you think of Matt Collins.
Obviously, one of the biggest things that the Raiders have to improve on is the red zone. Both red zones, right? As far as that goes. I know people are like, clamoring for that to take place. I just think it's it's really, it's it's all about number one. I think part of it is just being a threat to run the football. How many times have they not been a threat to run the football? And also, the penalties, the pre-snap penalties when they're at the 1 yard line inside the 5. So many times, people are jumping on. People are jumping. They're not holding their positioning, not holding their water, if you will. That saying comes to mind. And those are things that discipline in the scoring area is going to be huge for the Raiders, and something that I feel like Josh McDaniels can really help the Raiders become a better scoring team in the red zone, because people are going to. It's a too high league, right? So everybody's going to try to keep them from from scoring quickly, and kind of nickel and dime the way down the field. And when they get in there, tighten up during the red zone.
Yeah, they have to score touchdowns. The days of kicking 40-plus field goals are over. If this team kicks 40 field goals, they're not going to win a ton of games. Something went wrong. So there's no excuse. They have Josh Jacobs. They have Hunter Renfrow. They have Darren Waller. They have Devonte Adams. Matt Collins is a tall guy. Brian Edwards can win in the red zone if he gets the right matchups and runs the right routes. Foster Moreau can win in the red zone. But they're going to have to run the ball better first. That's the first part. They have to run the ball better in the red zone. It's going to open everything up. Mm-hmm. The one question I have on this roster, the Raiders have invested a ton of capital. They've brought in win now guys, Devonte Adams, Chandler Jones. Who's the backup quarterback on this team? If Derek Carr gets hurt, Garrett Gilbert better not take any snaps. Like, I'm eyeing Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, if the Raiders can get Ryan Fitzpatrick to come in on a 1-year deal, like, there has to be someone behind Derek Carr. I know a lot of Raider fans were happy about Marcus Mariota going to Atlanta and complained about the money they gave him.
I wasn't, but yeah.
They have to compete in the AFC West. If Derek Carr misses 3 or 4 weeks, the division's over. Like, you're not going to catch those other teams. They have to have a serviceable backup on this roster, and it better not be Garrett Gilbert. So I'm eyeing Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't want to say Andy Dalton because I don't like Andy Dalton, but
is Hoyer free or no?
He signed with the Patriots. This is the list of free agent quarterbacks: Fitzpatrick, Dalton, Newton, Gabbert, Glennon, AJ McCarron, Geno Smith. That's basically the guys.
Little wishbone with Cam Newton. Let's go.
Yeah, you have Devonte Adams out there, though. You better have someone that can throw him the ball. So out of that list, it's basically Ryan Fitzpatrick. So
that's gonna be tough.
I know Raider fans won't like that, but they better have a backup plan at quarterback, because they've built this roster to win now.
Yeah,
and their backup quarterback's Garrett Gilbert.
Yeah,
who was on the practice squad last year with New England.
A little worried about that. Gilmore, the mercenary, he's out there trying to get cash, trying to get paid out here. And I don't fault him. You can't play the game forever, so go out there and get as much money as possible. I heard some people saying the Bengals are sniffing around as well. What do you thought? Like he would obviously. I think they have a pretty. I'm not. I think the Raiders have a pretty good offer on the table for him. I think they want him. They know him very well. I think that defensive coordinator wants him. I think he can just probably salivating on getting his version, his kind of Devonte Adams in this defense. He wants to play a lot of defensive backs. He would really be a guy who would really help this Raider defense a lot. What are your thoughts about Gilmore coming? And then if not, could they swing a trade for a disgruntled cornerback like Bradbury with New York?
Yeah, Gilmore's doing the best thing for him. This guy's 31 years old. He's towards the end of his career. Yeah. He was the defensive player of the year 2 years ago. And Bill Belichick said, watch this. I'm just going to put you on PUP. And I don't want to pay you. And basically screwed him last year. And refused. So he hasn't been paid since he won, obviously defensive player of the year. So he wants his money. And he made the Pro Bowl last year in half a season when he went over to Carolina. So I think he probably ends up in Cincinnati unless he wants to take less money to come to Las Vegas. I don't think either team has anything more than a 2-year deal on the table. He probably wants more than that so they can give him a bigger bonus and spread out the cap hit. And so he's probably going to be sitting a while. The longer he's on the market, though, it's better for the Raiders. Again, if we get to June and $20 million in salary cap room opens up and the Raiders don't have a first and second round picks, they don't have to pay anyone in the draft. They're going to have a lot of money at that point. So maybe Gilmore just holds out and he just waits. But there are corners out there. Patrick Peterson's out there. I know he's older. He's 31 years old. Um, Trey Wayne's got released. Joe Hayden's out there. Chris Harris is out there. If the Raiders want to bring him over from the Chargers, he's more of an inside slot guy. But there's guys out there that can play corner. Xavier Rhodes is out there. AJ Boye is out there. So the market hasn't moved yet back there. And then obviously Bradbury's probably going to end up out there too. And I think the Raiders would make a strong play for him. If they can put Bradbury and Rock Ya-Sin out there, I know it sucks for Traylon Mullen. I'm a big Trayvon Mullen guy. I think he's a building block on this defense, but he didn't stay healthy last year, and he's in a contract year. So I don't know what this new staff thinks of him, or even what Patrick Graham thinks of him. So we'll see. We're going to find out, because if the Raiders bring in another corner, we're going to know that Trayvon Mullen's days are probably numbered with the Raiders.
Yeah, no question about it. As far as that goes, do you buy the all the talk? You think Green Bay is just Green Bay is just talking? They went to their kind of their mouthpiece. Everybody has a mouthpiece that covers their team. And then all of a sudden, when Devonte left, it was like, oh, we offered the same amount of money. We offered this. We offered all these things. Like, that's just kind of trying to save face, because he wanted to move on. And I'm not sure. I think it is what it is. I mean, there's a certain amount of the bag that's left for NFL teams. And number 12 took all the bag in Green Bay. I mean, let's just be honest. And then they probably said, if we have two players making almost $100 million a year in our salary cap? They said no.
Yeah, I would question what's the validity of that report, but what's the structure of their offer? So we can throw monopoly money out there, but what was guaranteed? He got 3 years and $67.5 million guaranteed from the Raiders. I don't know if Green Bay offered him that. They may have structured it differently. The payouts may have been different. You got to look at year 2 of this year. Look at year 2 for Devonte Adams. I think the payout might be $42 million. It's a huge number in year 2. So that's where most of the guaranteed money shows up. So that, to me, I don't think the structure was the same. And he clearly, and I saw some quotes from Devonte Adams today. I don't know who quoted them or if they were made up on Twitter, but basically something to the effect is, it's my turn to get paid. Aaron got paid. He had his turn. Now it's my turn. So I don't know if those are direct quotes from Devonte Adams or someone just put Devonte Adams quotes on Twitter, but it makes sense. Like, Green Bay's always been about Aaron Rodgers. Meanwhile, he's got the best receiver in football no one's talking about.
For years. Like for
Forever.
years, yeah, forever. As far as that goes, he's been doing that for a whole bunch of times here. People are asking about, can Carr live up to the hype and with all these offensive weapons? I mean, if you view him as a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, and you're sitting here saying to yourself, oh yeah, I mean, we need to kind of give him as many weapons as humanly possible to build him up, then I think they might even add some more weapons just in case somebody goes down. I mean, they're going to load up as much as they possibly can, because they want to make sure, they're tied to him now. They're tied to him now. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see an extension coming up as well. Did it surprise you that, well, as far as Watson goes, kind of also rated for 1 second, did it surprise you that Cleveland was the team?
It did surprise me, but when you showed me the contract they gave him, it doesn't surprise me. So it's kind of like Cleveland's out of the running, and they're like, here's $230 million guaranteed. And Deshaun's like, I love Cleveland. He loves Cleveland because they gave him $230 million guaranteed. That's a precedent. These other agents. What do you think Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray's agents are doing right now when they saw that? And then turn around Stafford what did Stafford get? $160 million, 135 guaranteed on a 4-year deal. We're talking serious quarterback money now. So Derek Carr is going to get the Stafford deal. 4 years, 3 or 4 years, 100. It's going to be $40 million a year.
Can
they? What it's going to come in?
Can they all thank Kirk Cousins, who keeps ringing up every 5 seconds? As far as that goes, what are your thoughts here? Any other thoughts you got for the Raiders this week? I mean, obviously a big week for them. Still more work to do, but they really did improve themselves dramatically.
Yeah, I say finish the job. That should be the motto now. Like, they've gotten the pieces in Jones. They've gotten Adams. Get a safety. fix the offensive line, complete it. Like, don't leave holes on this roster that are going to cause them not to be competitive and beat the AFC is tough. Look around the AFC.
Yeah.
How many teams don't have a legit quarterback? Like 2 or 3 out of 15?
You get no break.
Teams?
You get no break. You get no break.
None. Every week is going to be a bloodbath unless you're facing, I guess we can put Tua down in the bottom there unless you're facing, the Texans, the Jaguars. While Lawrence is still young, but who knows? Who knows what he's going to look like with a new coaching staff around him. There's definitely not an out in the AFC West. I guess Pittsburgh. I guess with Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah.
Like who would have guessed that they would have one of the worst quarterback situations in the AFC? Or if you go over to Zach Wilson's still young. Who knows what he's going to turn into? But there's no outs. Now you have Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's in the AFC South with a really, really good roster. Deshaun Watson's in Cleveland.
The Raiders play the Colts, right? Again?
I believe they do play the AFC South. They play the Jaguars, Colts.
We play the Colts like almost every year, which is so hilarious. John wanted to know what was the PFF ranking for Brandon Parker? He was 52 out of 55.
It was low.
It was.
I'll look it up right now.
It was low. As far as PFF goes, he was pretty low. He was pretty low as far as that goes.
I think there's only 3 tackles worse than him. His grade was 55.8.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do?
He had 9 penalties and allowed 8 sacks last year.
You can't. Yeah, it's really. I mean, the penalties are the ones that are just like the killers. I mean, and the quarterback sacks, the quarterback hits, all those things like that. So this should be. They've upped the ante. They've upped the ante dramatically. The way people talk about the Raiders now is different than a couple of days ago. The one thing that's kind of the couple of guys who tried to come out and basically say, the Raiders have traded for a kind of a washed receiver. I mean, they kind of try to make Devonte washed, like he's a 30-year-old wide receiver. It's like, dude, like, come on. I
saw PFF. I think it was PFF, one of their guys.
Yeah.
Like Devonte was like number 1 all year. And then I saw their updated rankings. He was on a Raiders. So now he's down to 5. He went from the 1st to the 5th receiver in the league the minute he got traded.
Yeah. Which was hilarious. Which you think? I mean, the volume is going to be. I mean, they're gonna, like I said, they're like you said, like there are going to be games where, the wide receivers are going to be spectators because if they can run the football and that's the weakness of the opponent, like Josh McDaniels is going to keep running the football. Like that's what he is. They're week to week. They don't just say, we're doing this. This is our offensive model. They didn't bring Devonte in here to block. I'll just say that they brought him to catch touchdowns and figure out that red zone. And I think like just seeing him and Derek together is going to be interesting. It's very interesting. I think also too, like hearing Chandler Jones say, his relationships, pass rushers are tight now. Hearing him talk about how much he wanted to become a Raider, obviously they paid him because it's part of it. But he wanted to play with Max Crosby, and I think that's when we look at where Max Crosby was in his life to now, I think that's actually amazing as far as that goes. So yeah, I mean the Raiders are hopefully in a good spot. So we'll have to see what happens as far as that goes. Did you see how much Al Michaels is getting paid to go to Amazon?
I did not. I would assume it's at least 10, 15 million.
It is something. I got to look it up. Al Michaels to Amazon. It is like Jeff Bezos is not playing with football right now. Like it's ridiculous. It was some ridiculous money. Some ridiculous cash money. As I looked it up, anything else before we head off? Thank you for everybody listening on the who listen to the podcast, watching the podcast live, and then following us as well. Make sure you subscribe.
No, that's about it. Until maybe overnight or tomorrow the Raiders make another move, but they're clearly trending in the right direction. And now with Jones and Adams, with a couple more pieces, I think they went clearly from the 4th best roster in the division to they're battling. They're right there with the Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs have the better quarterback at this point, but their roster they're filling holes. A couple more additions, and they don't have a reason not to be a playoff team in 2022 and win a playoff game. Imagine them hosting a playoff game if they can figure out how to win the division.
I mean, yeah, it might be 10-7 in the AFC might be home field advantage.
Think of it this way: if they go 3-3,
seriously,
this is how
that's all they gotta
bad it is
do.
to be in the AFC West. If you go 3-3 in the division, that's a win. If you split with those other teams, you have to go 7-4 in your other games just to get to 10 wins. You can't mess around and lose games to the Bears, the Redskins, those times.
Yeah.
The Raiders have to win the games they're supposed to win.
Okay. I think it was. I could be wrong. I think it was the same as Joe Buck. I think it was 5 years, $75 million for Al Michaels. Do you believe in miracles?
I don't. I don't really care for Al Michaels, but good for him.
Good for him. I mean, I'm not. I mean, like the people. It's funny. Like I watch these games. I don't like the people. The people realize that we don't really care that much. As long as you're not as bad as the Monday Night Crew they had like in the last couple of years with Louis Riddick and Steve Levy, we don't really care. Do they? I mean, did they ever ask us like, do we really care? It's just funny. That's just funny. That's hilarious. That's really funny. All right, guys. The Raiders made some big moves. Appreciate you guys hitting us on the live stream. We'll do some more live stuff coming up in future weeks. I think next week we're gonna go to the draft and look at some quarterbacks. We'll do our quarterbacks kind of rundown for the NFL drafts here, and we'll see what happens there as far as that goes. Anything in parting?
Nope, that's it.
All right, man. All right. Ryan, safe travels. Raider Nation. See you next time.